I'm Eric Anderson. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, hundreds of taxi drivers pack Golden Hall downtown to argue for and against a proposal about taxi permits. The question before the council, should they lift the city's limit?
I'm Peggy Pico. Also ahead, voter-approved Prop 47's reduction of some felonies to misdemeanors began right away. What's the impact and the next steps for local law enforcement? And what do you do when your police officers are among the lowest paid in the entire state? San Diego's police chief and police union president join us with some ideas.
And the families of people missing in Mexico are turning up the heat on their government to get something done. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Eric Anderson. San Diego City Council is meeting tonight about a proposal to remove a cap on the number of taxi permits issued by the city. KPBS reporter Matt Bowler says the two sides have been at odds for nearly a year.
Right now, there are 933 city-issued taxicab permits in San Diego. Last year, San Diego State University's Center on Policy Initiatives released a study, Driven to Despair. The study says that drivers are being paid low wages, some reportedly below minimum wage, and the emergence of rideshare services like Uber push the concept of taxi reform forward. The United Taxi Workers of San Diego in the blue shirts wants to remove the cap on the number of taxi permits San Diego issues, but the taxicab business owners in the red shirts think that will destroy the taxi businesses. Stas Davidos has 13 cabs and owns Stas Taxi.
They know that this is not right. For their own benefit, this is not good because it's going to create an overflood of taxi cabs.
However, Sarah Saez is from the United Taxi Workers of San Diego. She says the market has plenty of room to expand.
The CEO of Uber said that he came to San Diego because there weren't enough taxis. He said that is the reason why they came into this market.
There's so much interest in this issue that the council chambers didn't have enough seats for all of the spectators, and Speaker's Council had to be moved to Golden Hall. When last checked, no vote yet, although council members are discussing the issue. Keeping the story updated online at kpbs.org. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
Congressman Scott Peters has officially won re-election to the 52nd District. His challenger, Carl DeMaio, conceded on Sunday. Now, Peters spoke with KPBS by phone over the weekend.
Well, we knew what San Diego wanted. We knew what San Diego didn't want. And so we really just we spread the word about as much as we could about a record of problem solving, and then just reminded people that Mr. DeMaio really had a pretty extremist background, and I think we showed that.
DeMaio thanked his supporters on Twitter today, writing, "Although we came up short in votes, I cannot thank you enough for your support throughout this campaign." The final weeks of the campaign included accusations of sexual harassment by two former DeMaio campaign staffers. On Friday, UT San Diego reported new details involving one of the staffers. That person said he gave campaign information to the Peters campaign manager back in early June. The report says that Marianne Pintar then made copies of the materials, gave the copies to Peters. Then they were turned over to police a few days later. The report appears to contradict Peters' description of the series of debates given during October 24th debate. At that time, Peters said they only had the materials for 24 hours. On Sunday, he told KPBS he messed up that timeline.
I wasn't expecting the question at the time it came. When we got additional material, it did sit in an envelope for a while before the police came to pick it up, but it was our intention to turn it over as quickly as possible, and that's what we did.
Peters says he never looked at that material. North County Congressman Darrell Issa wants answers from the U.S. Postal Service about its report today that it was the victim of a cyber attack from China. The news follows an Associated Press investigation which found that a $10 billion a year cybersecurity effort is failing to keep up with regular attacks. The AP's Haven Daly explains.
Every day, this is how America comes under attack.
This is war. There's no other way to really describe it.
Security firms in Silicon Valley are trying to help the government fight the bombardment of these cyber attacks, which the U.S. intelligence community now says trump terrorism as the #1 threat to the United States.
We are all very, very vulnerable.
Phyllis Schneck has been running the Department of Homeland Security's Cyber Fighting Center for just over a year. Recently, the Associated Press got a rare glimpse inside its online defense nerve center.
Whether it's games or automobiles or access to information or learning, all that creates more things that are connected, and that has grown faster than previous risk calculations in security investments were growing.
A review by the AP found the number of reported cyber incidents on federal networks is up 70%, from under 30,000 in 2009 to nearly 50,000 in 2013. Everything from Social Security numbers to Pentagon secrets is at risk. Mark Mayfred knows the government's vulnerabilities better than most. As a teen hacker, he was raided by the FBI after successfully breaking into federal computer systems to post anti-government slogans.
Guys with guns coming over, the back fence, coming through the front door.
A decade later, his company now helps agencies protect themselves from cyber attacks.
The government's, like most other things, very, very slow moving, and they're very slow moving to adopt new technologies, new security standards.
But more than half the cyber incidents are partly to blame on government employees themselves, who inadvertently click on malicious links or leave their cell phones unattended.
Anything that you're storing on the app can be taken by the attacker.
This hacker at a recent cybersecurity convention in Las Vegas shows how to hack into a federal government application on a stolen cell phone in just minutes.
Once you're at this level of introspection into the app, being able to look into the data, the methods, the entire architecture of the app, you have full control.
One of the biggest hurdles in countering the growing pool of attackers is convincing more young programmers to pursue careers in cybersecurity. Haven Daily, Associated Press, San Francisco.
A warning tonight for iPhone and iPad users. A cybersecurity company says it has found a weakness in Apple software that hackers can use to steal sensitive information. Now, the problem is called mask attack. Security experts say it's a trick that tricks users into downloading a malicious app to their devices. And Apple is not commenting, but is reportedly working on a fix. In the meantime, the experts say don't download an app unless it comes from the Apple Store or from your own employer. President Barack Obama is taking sides in the debate over net neutrality. In a video statement released today, he says the FCC should treat the internet like a utility. The president says it is poor policy to allow companies to create fast or slow lanes for digital content.
In plain English, I'm asking them to recognize that for most Americans, the internet has become an essential part of everyday communication and everyday life. The FCC is an independent agency, and ultimately this decision is theirs alone. But the public has already commented nearly 4 million times, asking the FCC to make sure that consumers, not the cable company, gets to decide which sites they use.
A San Diego-based group, New Media Rights, is heralding the president's position. Executive Director Art Neal says the president doesn't have any direct impact on the final rules, but he thinks Barack Obama's decision to speak out will influence the debate. Covered California is hitting the road. Leaders of the state health insurance exchange are going on a bus tour to spread word about the open enrollment that starts this weekend. A San Diego stop is planned for Thursday morning. Thousands of Kaiser Permanente nurses may go on strike in Northern California tomorrow. They're in contract talks with a healthcare company. The nurses say that patient care standards have been eroding for months, and they say Kaiser isn't ready for Ebola if it shows up at one of their hospitals. The California Hospital Association says the union is using Ebola worries to further its cause. A city-funded report finds that San Diego police officers are among the lowest paid in California. Peggy Pico looks at what that means for the city.
The compensation report found San Diego police officers earn about 15% less than market average, making their pay rates near or at the bottom of 18 other police departments surveyed in California. San Diego Police Chief Shelley Zimmerman and Brian Marvel, president of San Diego's Police Association, are here to talk about the problem and its possible solution. Welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Now, Brian, give us an idea of the range of cities and actual departments or officer positions that were included in the survey.
It was a pretty comprehensive survey. It ranges from the police recruit all the way up to police captains and all the ranks in between there. They compared cities that were comparable with the city of San Diego, and they did a couple countywide cities that were possibly have the opportunity to take officers from us.
So some local like Chula Vista, but as well as Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Jose, places like that.
Right, and those are the comparable agencies, the larger ones, and it also did the San Diego Sheriff's Department, Carlsbad, Chula Vista, and those.
And Chief Zimmerman, a similar study was done back in 2007, and they found back then that police salaries were in line with these other 18 surveyed departments. What's changed?
Well, what shows is that we're not competitive anymore. This is a very competitive market for police officers, not just our local agencies here, but throughout the entire state. And we've lost police officers to other local agencies in the Los Angeles area and in the Bay Area. So what this shows, it confirms everything that we've been saying, is that we must keep our police officers here, and we're not competitive.
So not competitive because of pension costs or retention?
It's all total compensation. We're having difficulties recruiting. What this didn't show is the difficulties that we are having recruiting over the last, let's say, 2.5 years, is that we've lost about 100 recruits that we wanted to opt into our police department that had either started our process or had actually gotten a conditional job offer that went to other law enforcement agencies.
So is that how pay, would you agree with that, how pay is actually influencing the recruitment and retention of police officers here?
Absolutely. It's a total compensation. And to add to what Chief Zimmerman spelled out, now that we have the release here, it's probably even going to make our recruiting unit even more difficult because people are now going to be able to see how low on the totem pole we are.
In just recently, I understand that I thought we got 160 officers last year. So are we getting enough officers in and just not keeping them?
Well, that's the great point that you just made, is that last year we hired 160 police officers. We spent millions of dollars to do that. It costs about $191,000 in investment cost to bring somebody on for their first year of training. But unfortunately, we lost 162 last year. So after all of that, we were -2. This year, I'm very grateful to Mayor Faulkner that we have the ability to hire more than 170 police officers. But as last year showed, we have to be able to keep them.
And how are you going to do that?
Well, that's what this salary survey and this total compensation study is about. And I know we're talking with Mayor Faulkner, with the City Council, the Police Officers Association, and we're very hopeful that very soon that we're going to be able to put something on the table, all of us coming together to make sure that we keep the very best police officers here.
And you two are on board on this together, as well as the mayor. Let me start with you, Brian. How is this report going to be used to either get enough money or to improve the retention and the hiring rates here?
Well, for the last several years, we've been talking about total compensation and how low that we have been as an agency. What the survey does now is it actually validates what we've been saying. It was paid for by the city, so therefore now when the elected officials go out into the communities, they're able to say, look, we actually have definitive proof that our police officers are the bottom of the market. We need to do something about it, and we're going to meet with them and correct that.
And do you have anything as far as first steps? Are you going to be meeting regularly? Do you have comps from other departments? Like, how are you specifically going to move forward using this report?
Exactly. And what it shows is that, quite frankly, it wasn't a surprise, this report, is that it just confirms everything that we have been saying. And we are using this report to move forward. And I know the mayor's committed to doing this. The city council's committed to it. Because as we talked about just a few moments ago, it does not make good economic sense to spend millions of dollars to hire police officers just to have them go somewhere else.
Where's the money coming from? Can the city afford actually hiring 172 more police officers?
Well, that's already in the budget, and that's why I'm so grateful to Mayor Faulkner and the City Council that his budget this year did have dollars in there to hire more than 170 police officers, but we just need to keep them.
And Brian, do you have plans as far as once you get them, how are you going to keep them here?
Well, we're meeting with the city to determine how much the city will be able to put towards this issue by creating a newer contract or an outside the contract, and that will send a message to our officers that are thinking of leaving, stay here. We're going to make it competitive. We want you to stay. And then it'll also send a message to people that are interested in law enforcement to come to San Diego.
All right. Police Association Chief, head of the Police Association, yes, Brian Marvel, and San Diego Police Chief Shelley Zimmerman. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks.
It has been more than a month since the disappearance of 43 students from a rural teaching college in central Mexico. That country's attorney general says a drug gang killed the students and burned their bodies. DNA tests are coming. The government's handling of the case, however, has sparked protests across Mexico. And as KPBS's Jill Replogo reports, the issue is galvanizing the families of missing persons in other Mexican states like Baja California. People are pressing authorities to do more.
Fernando Osegueda lays out vinyl posters printed with the names and photos of people who have gone missing in Baja California in recent years, including his son, who was kidnapped in 2007. Osegueda heads a group of family members of missing persons in the border state. He says the case of the 43 missing students in central Mexico has helped bring public attention to a nationwide problem. But after years of pressing state authorities for progress on the case of his son and other missing Baja Californians, he doesn't think the government is serious about finding them. He says the authorities always say the victims were involved in organized crime, and that's why they were targeted, so their cases don't go anywhere. Osegueda's group has documented 250 cases of missing persons in Baja California in the last 7 years. Some groups say the total number is much higher. Osegueda plans to camp out here in front of the Baja California State Government Palace until authorities agree to meet a list of demands. That list includes updating and making public the database of missing persons in Baja California and creating a special state prosecutor's office to investigate the cases. Jill Replogo, KPBS News.
Proposition 47, the measure to reduce some nonviolent felonies to misdemeanors, went into effect immediately once voters approved it last week. Peggy Pico finds out how local law enforcement is dealing with the shift.
Joining me with the next steps are my guest, Marlea Delano, Assistant San Diego City Attorney, and she leads the Criminal Division, and also Chief Deputy District Attorney Dave Greenberg. Welcome back.
It's good to be here.
Now, Dave, have any inmates already been released since this proposition passed?
Technically, no inmate's been released yet because nobody's been resentenced. However, we have had people that were in custody charged with felonies that were pending that were reduced to misdemeanors because of the new law. They've now pled guilty and have been released.
Well, I know local agencies have been preparing for this, I know, as well as your agencies and other law enforcement for the last couple of weeks. What's the plan now as far as implementing this? How are you going to do it?
Well, what we've been doing is we've been reviewing all of the cases going forward that are currently pending. We go to court, we file misdemeanor complaints, and then the case gets handled as any normal misdemeanor would be handled. With respect to those folks that want to be have their cases resentenced, those people that are in custody or have their custody portions over with, the public defender is going to be filing petitions. They've already sent us petitions. By the end of the week, we expect approximately 1,800 inmates to have filed 4,800 petitions. And that's because most of those inmates have multiple cases.
Now, we understand, Marlea, about 3,000 cases will actually shift over to the city attorney's office. How are you preparing to handle that?
Well, that's correct. It's a significant increase in our caseload, so about a 15% increase in the number of cases we handle. Right now, we're just working closely with the DA's office to look at how the process kind of shakes out, and we'll go from there.
Will you be adding staff, or will there be more funding?
You know, right now, I think, again, we're just kind of taking a look and see attitude. Obviously, with a 15% increase, I would anticipate that we will need more staff down the line. But we're going to wait and see what the impact is actually on our attorneys as well as our staff, and then see what we need going forward.
And Dave, you touched on this. How many people, again, might be affected by this Prop 47 who might be eligible? And does the DA tell them, or is it on them to come forward and request a petition?
It's on them to file a petition. And that's what the public defender is doing. The public defender is going back through their database systems and making contact with people and then filing petitions on their behalf. So it's not the district attorney's office going forward. The public defender is actually going to go all the way back to 1990 for people. So people whose sentences are over and done from many, many years ago are entitled to have their case resentenced, and they're going to file petitions. What we're going to do is we're going to try to focus on those folks that are currently in custody, locally and or in prison.
Now, Marlea, not all felons are eligible for this. Not even all non-violent criminals are eligible for this. So what is the criteria for eligibility?
Well, it depends on what kind of a criminal history that they have. Certain people who have been charged with sex offenses aren't eligible, and some other felony crimes. So we'll just be looking at the individuals that are sent over from the DA's office and go from there.
The current ones, yes. So Dave, could you add to that as far as eligibility? I understand.
Sure. So the folks that are eligible for resentencing are those folks that have were convicted of either one of the simple possession of drugs or one of the theft offenses, and they don't have a certain prior conviction. That is, if you have to register as a sex offender, you're probably not eligible. If you have a prior conviction for murder, you're not eligible. If you have a prior conviction for possessing a weapon of mass destruction, you're not eligible. So it's not a large pool of people that aren't eligible. In fact, most of those folks will be eligible.
I'll start with you, Marlea, on this. Do you have a financial impact that you're anticipating, that either to hire more staff or to handle the influx here, on how Proposition 47 is going to affect the city's office?
Well, again, I mean, it's hard to imagine having an increase of 15% and not having some staff to address that. But again, I don't know exactly what those numbers are going to look like. So the best we can do is kind of see how the next few months go and look at the impact on our staff. And certainly if we are in a position where we need to ask for additional resources, we'll do that. Right now, the district attorney's office and our office, as always, we work very closely together, so we're supporting each other through this transition in every way that we can.
And we'll have to end on this, Dave. What about the idea that in the proposition they said that the money saved from having prison inmates, to having fewer of them, could help pay for some of this, including treatment programs?
Well, that money, if there is any money realized, that calculation won't be until July of 2016. So for the next 18 months to 2 years, while all these people are not getting the treatment they need, there isn't going to be money to provide them treatment.
All right. Chief Deputy District Attorney Dave Greenberg, thanks so much. And also Assistant City Attorney Marlea Delano, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, President Obama heads to Asia to talk trade and try to ease tensions with China. That's Monday on the PBS News Hour.
San Diego veterans will be honored tomorrow with a parade downtown. It'll start at 11 in the morning near the County Administration Building. The 1-mile route will take it down North Harbor Drive towards Seaport Village, and the parade will end at G Street and Pacific Highway. Tomorrow's parade will be dedicated to those who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Today, the Marine Corps is celebrating its 239th birthday. The Corps was founded back in 1775 by the Continental Congress. And tomorrow, Marine families will be celebrating at Miramar. Members of the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing return from Afghanistan, along with units from Camp Pendleton. It is a good time to raise a glass to salute servicemen and women, perhaps filled with craft beer from San Diego. Beer Week is officially underway. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando gives us a taste.
1, 2, 3. Mayor Kevin Faulkner was on hand at Saturday's Guild Fest to launch San Diego Beer Week. The 12th annual Guild Fest, sponsored by the San Diego Brewers Guild, marks the official start of the 10-day event, says Guild President Brian Scott.
This year we sold out Guild Fest. We're going to see upwards of 3,000 plus people here on the pier today. 60 plus breweries, 3,000 people, San Diego beer, food, all that fun stuff. So here we are.
If you go to sdbw.org, we actually have a whole calendar there that lists the different type of events, which includes beer pairings, chefs taking their food, cooking with beer, and then pairing it together with beer offerings to see what the contrast and complement can do for it.
Beer has so many different styles made up of so many different components and flavor profiles that you really have sort of a pantry full of flavors and ingredients to use, depending whether you use a brown beer that's a little maltier or add an IPA that's hoppy and bitter at the end of another recipe. You have many more options, and I think people are starting to find that kind of exciting.
Beer Week is really more about the retailers than it is the breweries. We as brewers are actually supporting the retailers with over 500 events in a 10-day period. You also have tap takeovers, where we actually go in and one brewery may go where they might normally have 1 or 2 taps. They may have 10, 12, 20, even beyond. For that one single day, you get to go in and try an amazing portfolio of beers from a single source. There's literally 3, 4, sometimes 6 events in a single day. Wherever you're at, you can find an outstanding Beer Week event.
We are the craft brew capital of the world, ladies and gentlemen.
San Diego Beer Week's tasty offerings continue through Sunday. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
For more information on events, go to sdbw.org. Veterans Day may be a bit overcast. Coastal temperatures will be in the upper 60s for the next couple of days, and it'll be pretty much the same for our inland valleys. Sunny but cool up in the mountains, low 60s expected there, and if you're out in the desert, look for low 80s with plenty of sunshine. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks very much for joining us. Hope you have a great evening.